Why the Buddha said the sixth precept, abstain from eating after midday? Probably he thinks you eat too much. You have to eat so much. You look at the origins of the precept. This precept is also found in the Vinaya. That means the monks, no? It's an interesting story. If you don't know about it yet, you know about it? No. Before this, there was this precept: the monks could eat any time, morning, afternoon, night. No, they could. So when they go and beg for food, they would beg for food in the morning, in the afternoon, even night. They go around. So one day, one evening, the monk was begging for food. Johnny, come lately. This is Johnny. You know the word Johnny come lately? So as I said, in the beginning there was no rules forbidding monk to eat after midday. They could eat any time. Then something happens. So the monk was going to beg for food, and he came in the evening. So he went to the lady's house. He stood at the door with a bowl. The lady was so busy cooking, she didn't notice him. So suddenly he turned around, he saw a man standing at the door. She got scared and she shouted, "Ah!" She took the oil and poured on him, So when the incident went to the Buddha said, no meals after midday. But generally the precept is understandable. Usually the Buddha doesn't simply give the rule unless there's occasion for him to give up. Like see, in the early days there were no rules for monks. The monks knew how to behave themselves, because all his disciples were either enlightened or arahant, or they knew how to behave. But when people started, all sorts of people started joining, and some of them not well behaved, they a bit naughty and funny, and so to control them, you have to have these rules. Rules are made first to control the defilements. You don't have, you see, people who don't observe six precepts, they eat any time. You say Malaysians eat how many times? 7 times at least. Before breakfast, after breakfast tea, lunch, after lunch tea, then after that dinner, supper, late supper, and some more, one more. In the middle of the night, you wake up, you go and look for the treasure stick. That's why nowadays a lot of people get obese, diabetics, and all sorts of things. Why do you ask this question? Whoever would ask. I would like to know why the person who wrote this question wanted to know this answer to this question. Who? You? I thought you put up your hands. In the last part of the Karaniya Metta Sutta, it mentions that the one who practices it will not be rebirth again. Is metta practice able to not be rebirth again? I think this is a misunderstanding. How is the last part of the Metta Sutta? Yeah? Etang sating aditya brahma metang vihara idamahu dittinja anupagama silava dasanena sampanno kame suvinyakitena. How to translate that? Anybody? You know the Metta Sutta by heart? Mettancha sabalokasmi anna sambhavya primana udang atto chatiriyancha samvatang avera sapatang dittincha anupagama silava disanena sampurno. Is put aside wrong views and with morality, and his insight, vision is complete, then he will not come to rebirth in a womb again. You must understand, dasanena sampano. That means when he has endowed with a vision. Dasanena sampano is endowed with vision, then he will not be come back again. That means after the practicing metta, he practice vipassana, then he will not be reborn again. Not that it's just by metta he can be reached nirvana, no. Because the last line says, the main part is the metta, then later the last sentence is dittinja anupagama, no longer going to wrong views, silava, endowed with morality, dasanena sampanno, endowed with vision, that means with wisdom, insight, and then he will not be reborn in the womb again. This one difficult to read lah. This one 是不是？感觉痛是起来是起身心麻 something wrong with the Chinese grammar. Does feeling pain indicate anger? No. Pain is pain, anger is anger. Pain is a bodily feeling. It's a bodily process. Okay. When this bodily pain comes, you don't have to have anger. For example, even arahants do experience pain, but they don't have anger. Anger, if it arises, could be a reaction to the pain. That means you don't like the pain that comes. I don't like pain. Pain is so terrible. I want to try to die. That was anger. But when your pain arises, you're mindful. Pain, pain, pain. Like that. So what? Even if I die, so what? So you just watch pain, pain, pain. So when pain arises, it does mean you have anger. But a lot of people, when pain arises, especially if they don't have proper training, they don't have patience, they don't have mindfulness, and then when pain comes, then automatically the anger arises immediately as a reaction. But anger is mental pain, mental feeling. The bodily pain is mind, but it's bodily feeling. When you get angry, there's a mental pain occurs at the mind door. You're asking about anger. This feeling of unease, sadness, also a form of anger. Unease. Simpuan. Is it not clear lah? Simpuan, that means mind not at peace. Not tranquil. When the mind not at peace, it does not mean there's anger. But obviously it means that there's no mindfulness. That means it could be deluded, he could be restless, and so on, but not necessarily anger. But often, if you are not mindful, and the mind becomes very disturbed, and so there is anger. Otherwise, it will be mental pain. When mental pain is like, I don't like, I don't want, that type of refusal, negative response, then usually it is mental pain, and that mental pain is, mental feeling is anger. Thus, hindering someone from performing virtues is the meditation creates bad karma. What are the karmic consequences? Chu de ta ren xiu san ye chan xiu si fu zao ye 会得什么果报？Well, it depends whether there's intentional or not. You may not have intention. It depends on what's happening to the mind. You want to purposely disturb his meditation. He thinks very smart. I see how good his mindfulness. Bang, bang. Take a stick and poke him in the back. And of course, it's definitely bad karma. There's ill intention. Especially you want the people to do dana, do what. You try to stop them. And this is usually bad karma. Sometimes you don't want to, you don't know. For example, if a friend going to meditate, don't go to meditate. No, we are just we don't have a mahjong game. We need one person to play. You come and join us. After that, you can go to your meditation. And of course, it's bad karma. Because you may not want to hurt the person, but the mind is craving. And so there is bad karma. Although you may not want to hurt the person. But you say everybody meditating very quietly, and then somebody fall asleep. This happened in Burma once. I remember meditating early in the morning. We get 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We go and meditate. Everybody very concentrated, very quiet, very quiet. And suddenly, boom! Why? That one meditator fell down from sitting on the ground. Woke everyone out, and then some of them started laughing. So, see, he didn't intend to wake you up. He just fell asleep. So it bang and it caused noise. So is it bad karma? It's not bad karma. It's falling asleep. It's not bad karma. Falling asleep is Bhavanga Chitta is neutral. But if he's trying to meditate and then so many tension in his head, he cannot stand anymore, too much tension, and so he's screaming, you know. That was what happened. I heard that in Burma there were all these foreigners meditating, some were nuns, so meditated very intense, concentrated, and somebody goes, and that very loud. So of course it frightened everybody. You know. So is it bad karma or not bad karma? He did not intend to frighten people, but mind at the time screaming is anger, too much stress. Still is bad karma. Yeah? But it's not because he wants to disturb the other yogis. But if it is really ill intention, then bad karma. I had a story of one lady. She told me, this was in Japan, Zen monastery. They were meditating Zen, they meditate together. And this lady, she's a foreigner. She became a nun there. And meditating next to her was a Asian Japanese monk or something like that. Meditating, she was meditating there. And then he was making strange noises. So she was always disturbed. So she complained to the teacher. The teacher said, "You must have compassion." So she went back and still going. So she got very angry with him. She imagined that she was taking a knife and digging his brains out. That is definitely bad karma, although she didn't really have a intention to dig his brains out with a knife. But definitely it's bad karma. And I think the monk also knows, because he also told the teacher, "I think this lady doesn't like me." So general disturbing people meditators, bad, not good. Even though you don't have intention, still the karma is also not quite right. Maybe you're reborn a human being, and you're reborn as a human being, but this karma is still behind you, disturbing other people doing meditating. So you may be reborn in a place where it's very noisy. You try to meditate, you cannot meditate because there's always noise around. So it's not directly a bad karma, but karma is not quite right. So one day this Italian man, he liked to meditate. So apa itu? So what happens is, he decided to leave his old apartment. He bought a new apartment. But when he bought the apartment, he was so angry because the new apartment, and a lot of children there screaming. I can't stand the screaming children outside. You see, he tried to run away from noise. It's bad karma follow him. The easiest way is to learn to not hearing. Here come, there go out. Here come, there go out. Ini masuk, ini keluar, ini keluar. Yeah. Otherwise, of course, firstly, you really get angry and you disturb other people's meditation. Then, of course, you may go to hell. A heavy karma depends on who you disturb. Like the story of Sariputta. Sariputta was in Nirodha Samapatti or something like that, deep concentration. So this yaka, there are two yakas. No yaka? Demons. One yaka said, this thinks you know to meditate. Test him. Then the other yaka said, no, this is a holy man, don't disturb him, bad karma. So he didn't care, he used his power to strike his head, hammer, strike his head. The force was so strong they can split stones and rocks. So he struck at his head, but no, in Nirodha Samapatti nothing can hurt you, Immediately he went to hell. Sariputta, chief disciple, Arhan, no play. So, people ask Sariputta, do you feel anything? No, I think there's some cotton wool on my head. Macam itulah. How heavy the type of karma, how heavy the karma depends on the defilement, how strong the defilement is. Yeah? And then who's the object is? What's the object? If it's Arhan, then of course the road. Yeah? If it's another bad fellow, also no good, but not so bad. The karma not so bad because it's bad. It's probably worse than you. Generally, that type of karma will be disturbing peace. So you won't have peace. Things will disturb your peace of mind. And this person is reborn as human. He will come and disturb your meditation. Yeah. Why is somebody disturbing you during the meditation? People talking. Who wrote this question? You, Tanju Kwam. Where is what you call Ritik Ju? Where? He's been complaining about people around him. Too many people, too crowded. So I told him, look, everybody's searching for peace. You also searching for peace. So don't complain. Any sutta talk about meditation, pain experienced by Buddha before his enlightenment. Yeah, you look at the life history of Buddha. During his striving for enlightenment, he get a lot of pain and so on. He did describe something. There is. That's all? Yeah, very good question. Today I have actually a very complicated talk for you. If you can understand something very good, if you cannot understand KIV, the last talk I mentioned that the first true insight is the insight into non-self regarding the characteristic of the phenomena, and the second is involved with the conditioning. This one makes the cushion very slippery. It's better. That means you look into the conditioning, as explained before, day before yesterday. First is getting hold of the ultimate reality, and you perceive it wholly according to its characteristics, non-self characteristic. Secondly, when you look closer and closer to them, you find that they are not independent, they are conditioned. That means there are more than one thing involved. There's a cause and conditioning factor and a condition factor. They usually put it as cause and effect. That's partly true. If there's just one thing and one thing as a whole, that means it doesn't change. If it changes, that means it's not an entity by itself. It is compounded. For example, we say earth element cannot be, when you have earth element, there has to be water, fire and wind element present. These three are co-nascent. They come together, rise together and disappear together. You cannot have earth element and no wind element. You cannot have water element and no earth element. So they have to be part of the same thing. It's just like a cube has how many sides? 6 sides, right? Can you have a cube with only 4 sides? You know, it's not a cube. So that's why they are composite. They have come together, and these qualities they coexist. So this conditioning in rupa materiality. So when you watch deeper, you find that this is not so simple. It's just like there's a rock, and then you start beating the rock, and you look at the rock inside. There are many other things inside the rock. So that is conditioning. So instead of seeing one thing at one moment, it's like seeing 2 things in one moment. But it's not 2 things, it's one thing. It's a conditioning that makes it appear as 2. So that's what we call condition. That means you start to penetrate into the existential nature of the object. Right? In science, we try to look into the materiality. And so what did they find? They find it's composed of many elements. And after they go further inside, it's composed of many particles, atoms and neutrons. And you go further, and what do you find? All this positron, electron, proton. And you go further, what do you get? you get nothing. So you end up with what? Suku. Energy. So what is energy? You know what's energy? You don't have energy and you're lazy, the Zen master come here and hit your head. I got a lot of energy back. Yeah? It's energy, yeah? Sleepy. The Zen master will take a stand, whack you on the back, and you get energy. So what is energy? Can you see energy? Can you touch energy? You know, it's beyond concepts. Beyond. But meditation, can you see energy? Yes, you can see energy when you go to meditation. Yeah? What is energy? Different. One is a bodily energy, one is a mental energy. But most important is conditioning. Conditioning is basically energy. Yeah? Because there's conditioning, so things happen. When conditions are not there, things cease. So there's energy. So when you look deeper into the Paramata Dhamma, like the elements, the feelings, the consciousness, and you watch it, inside there are different conditions involved. So it's like cutting into the superficial. The first superficial existential nature is the specific characteristics. Hardness for earth element, tension for wind element, and so on. So you cut into it, so you see that inside it, when you look deep inside this primary existential nature, there are deeper causes. 1, 2 cause, 3 cause, 10 cause, 100 cause, they're all there. So this is what we call starting of the penetration, Dhamma Vicaya, investigation of the Dhamma. The mind start looking deeper into the existential nature. First insight is like you see the door. Open the door, yes, you see the door. What do you see at the door? The door is open, you can see. After that, you don't stay there. You have to step inside. So when you start stepping inside, that is the second insight knowledge. When you're getting beyond the superficial or initial characteristic of the existential nature, called specific characteristic. Once you start stepping inside, then you can keep on stepping deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper inside. So it's not you see 2 in 1, you see 3 in 1, you see 10 in 1, you see 1,000 in 1. So what happens when you start going in and experiencing this phenomena as it is? And then what you do, you experience the 3 universal characteristics. This is the tiranya parinya. And these characteristics is like many things combined. It's just like, you have this, you cook curry. You know how to cook curry? Yeah. Boleh. Agnes, I'm sure you know how to cook curry. You know how to cook curry? Yeah, of course you know. How many types of curry do you know how to cook? 100? Okay, good. How many types of curry can you cook? You know, simple lah. You just add curry powder and then you cook your curry already. You know? Last time different. Last time people have to collect all the spices, pound, rempah, and then after that you put a lot of chili. The more chili, the better. Then after that you boil, and then you just curry. Of course, curry not enough. You must add santan. Many places they don't have santan, so they use milk. Like Northern India, they use curd and all those things, and like that. Yeah, curry. So when you see the curry, you only see red, red, yellow, green curry, blue curry, and you just see the color. You don't see the ingredients in it. I'm just talking about. So you have to send to the lab, to analyze what are the ingredients of this curry. So he starts. But here we're not talking about curry, just using as an example. We're talking of phenomena, earth element, wind element, all the other things like a pot of curry. You don't know what, so you have to really. So you cannot think, you cannot conceptualize. Your mind has to go inside to know the existential nature. The more you know the existential nature deeper, the more you see the different conditioning and the constituents within the existential nature. So at one point you see this whole thing start moving, start changing. This change is not the same as the initial change when you see rising and falling. It's not a change that lifting is different from stepping. This comes from after experiencing the second inside knowledge. When you go to the third inside knowledge, all the different particles, all the different elements within that constituents, all the constituents within that phenomena, or then you see the tiranya. That means the comprehension, full understanding of the universal characteristics. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. That means you see anicca, impermanence, dukkha, and anatta together as one. Because they are all different words having the same meaning. And the meaning means conditioned or compounded. That's why a very important word in Buddhism and in meditation is sankhara. Sankhara means compounded, conditioned. And it is not one thing, it is made of many things together, called compounded. Like the last words of the Buddha is Vaya Dhamma Sankhara. Formations are in a flux. Apamadena sampadeta. Strive on with heedfulness. Similarly, when it says Sabbe Sankhara Anicca, all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. Sabbe Sankhara Anicca Yada Panyaya Pasati Atta Nibindati Dukke Esamago Visuddhiya. All formations are impermanent. When one sees it with wisdom, then one is disenchanted with ill. This is the purification of the mind. That means when you see formations rise and pass away, all included, nama, rupa, everything, and you see them as suffering. You don't see them as terrible, horrible suffering and a cause of suffering. Then one is disgusted, disenchanted, one becomes detached to it. And one is detached to it, and then one is free from it. Detachment has to be complete. But Sankara is used also in other terms, in other ways. For example, I say Sankara Kanda, mental formations, as in the 5 aggregates. Their mental formations refers more to the Cetasikas. Refer to the Cetasikas. So in that sense it's not complete. In the sense that it does not include rupa, materiality. But the general idea is there. Recently, when I was in Vietnam, somebody asked me, he says he's meditated, he understands anatta, he experienced anatta, he understands anicca, but experience anicca, but he doesn't understand dukkha. Why? I mean, he's been meditating under me before, so and so on. You mean he doesn't know what is pain? Of course he has seen pain. Anybody who have started vipassana for time will have to see pain. Right? Young, do you see pain in your meditation? Is pain happiness or suffering? But that is suffering, true, but it's not as dukkha lakkhana, suffering of the three characteristics. It's suffering in a more conventional way. But you have to see that first. So the suffering and the three characteristics is when you able to see anicca clearly, that means you see the moment of passing away very clear, then only you can see the dukkha. Because the dukkha characteristic means rising and passing away. And you know it as dukkha only when you see it very, very clearly, the incessant rising and dissolution process. So I tell him, look, you have to go for longer retreat, get higher insight knowledges, then you will understand dukkha. Okay. And only you can understand this dukkha clearly, then only you can have strong disgust, detachment from dukkha of the 5 aggregates. Then only you can be free. Otherwise you're still attached to a pleasant feeling, then you won't be free. Okay, we stop here tonight.